1 hour and 40 minutes left to my destination in Prague. My car's fuel gauge has been pleading for attention for some time now. I'd already passed 2 gas stations, but I skipped them on purpose. Throughout my whole life, I got used to refilling my gas only at the Brogies stations, and in a few minutes I could see their shiny signboard on the way. My sympathy for it is not dictated by their prices or gas quality. I like it mainly due to its restaurant section. Secondly, their restrooms are much cleaner than concurrency. The only problem with Brogies is that their cashiers are always a little grumpy or rude. In my experience, it has to be their recruitment criteria. Despite everything for small inconveniences, you get the best hot dogs possible on the gas station market. Sometimes I wonder if those two things are connected, rudeness and hot dog taste. Is it possible that during long hours rotating on the grill, the little sausage can get soaked with employee energy? That person's unpleasantness is getting transmuted into the meat taste. In that case, it would mean I like bad aura hot dogs. Scratch that. 20 minutes later, my turn in the small queue had come. My fuel tank is refilled to 3/4, and in my hands a local bottle of cola-like drink accented with orange and licorice flavour. I ordered a hot dog with Thousand Island sauce. For me, sauces are not very important, and this one has the best name. I never checked where this name originates. Back in my car, the hot dog was delicious, as always. In Prague, I met Luke in a bar on the old town's edge. We sat down with a beer and he led me through the events of his vacation in Hungary 3 years ago. The strangest vacation of his life. Luke started slowly.
Me, along with my friends Jane and Peter, arrived at Balaton Lake in mid-August. The water in the lake was warm and the wind was delicately brushing our cheeks. We were exploring Hungarian culture, trying new dishes, classic tourist trip. It was the 18th of August. On Thursday morning, we visited Tihany Peninsula. Even without the blooming lavender, the trip provided quite a view. We were goofing around, catching every breath, like we felt alive again after a year of work week, followed by another work week. This was the first time I saw Jane's true smile in a while. I could tell we were happy. The first weird event happened around noon, when we were sightseeing at Tihany Abbey. Jane started to freak out a little, telling us she is hearing some sobbing in the abbey. I and Peter didn't hear anything unusual, so we thought she was pulling our legs. We were making many jokes at each other that day, so it was normal for us. But Jane seemed a little off. After lunch, Jane was cheering again. We went to a local bar and spent most of the afternoon there. It wasn't even late. Maybe around 7 p.m. when we decided to move our asses for a walk. We were walking next to the shore for some time. The lake was calm, and the dusk was slowly beginning. Then we decided to take a small hike to the nearby forest before it gets dark. We were walking in this area almost every day, so it was surprising when we noticed a forest path we hadn't seen before. Out of curiosity, and knowing we still have like 2 hours of sunlight, we followed it up through a soft ridge. The air in the forest was fresh, mixed with a lake breeze. Slowly, the woods started to get quieter. Even the bugs stopped buzzing. We were walking and talking about.
Luke hung for a while, then continued. He never told me what the topic of their conversation was back then.
After a few minutes, the forest began to thin out. A clearing started to loom in the distance. A few steps ahead, and we found ourselves entering an old village.
Luke described the village as small, surrounded by trees, formation of houses built in a double circle. In the centre stood a chapel with a high bell tower. Nearby was a wide old stone well.
It looked abandoned, but not ruined, like residents had just left one day and never returned. We walked between the houses. Each door was closed, windows clouded by age. Jane bent down by a flower bed beside one hut. Beautiful yellow marigolds looked recently trimmed. The soil was wet, even though no rain had fallen today. We admired it for a moment, and we moved on. Then, Peter claimed he saw something moving on the bell tower for a moment. But of course, Giving it a little observation didn't bring any discoveries at that time, not a single soul. We came to the next house. Like other buildings, it has a saggy thatched roof and stone walls. Like no other houses, this one had a few holes in the ceiling, which slightly lightened the interior. I peeked through the clouded window and saw a table set with dinner. The food wasn't rotting. On the contrary, roasted wild boar was served steaming hot. There were also 2 large jugs of red wine and a set of glasses. Around the table were 6 simple chairs without a backrest. On the wall was a hanging crest, presenting a bird without a head on a yellow background. There was no one in the room. Peter tried the handle of a solid oak door, but it didn't budge. The sun was almost set, so we wanted to head back home, feeling that something was not right with the village. The problem was that the path we came from was gone. What had been a clean trail through brush was now an impenetrable line of trunks and shadows. Peter slowly started to freak out, but Jane seemed to be oddly calm. I tried to comfort Peter, and then, before we noticed, Jane was already next to the well. The well didn't have any roofing, but the reel was in good condition. Well's stones were rounded, worn, and shiny like a statue in the city. Jane grabbed a stone edge and looked inside. Her face frowned, and we all heard a silent whisper.
"The feast is ready. Will you stay with us?"
Jane stood in this position, motionless for a while, staring into the well's endless abyss. We tried to talk to her, move her, but she was blind and deaf to the world around us. Then, more whispers appeared, and Jane started walking toward the chapel. Heavy doors opened before her with a loud creak. I followed Jane entering the chapel, leaving Peter behind. In chapel, temperature drops drastically. The heavy air smells of incense and wax. The chapel wasn't richly decorated. No stained glass, no chandelier, and even no benches. On the far end was a big altar, which, in contrast, was looking gorgeous. It was a crisply hewn block of granite 3 meters wide and 2 meters long. On top, countless grooves formed unknown patterns. The altar edges were framed with massive brass. On the left side was a small wooden chest. Behind it stood 4 high pails wrapped with dark red ribbons. On the wall again hung a big yellow crest of a bird without a head. Even though visually the chapel was quite empty, it felt fully occupied. Jane opened the altar's casket and took out something small. Silent whispers turned into chanting. I took a few steps forward. The incense was so intense that my throat became sore in no time. Then I felt a warm gust on my cheek and heard,
"Thank you, Lucian. We have everything."
I got scared to death and ran outside. Peter was still standing next to the well. I looked into his eyes. They were unresponsive in the same way as Jane's. I noticed the well's bucket was pulled out now. My throat was killing me, so I started to drink water from it. When the pain faded away, I noticed Peter's lips were wet. He drank this water too. I felt heavy, then heavier and heavier until I lost consciousness.
For the following events, Luke claims to have a gap in his memories. The very next thing Luke can remember clearly is him standing again in the forest clearing, seeing Jane walking like in a trance. Peter was not there. Luke says he lost his memory, but I don't buy it. He isn't telling everything. Again.
A short time after, Jane wakes up to reality. She looked disoriented. I hugged her, feeling such relief. We could not explain to each other what happened. Peter was not with us. I tried to look for him. I was shouting his name, but he was nowhere to be found. It was already pitch black. We didn't know what to do, and Jane convinced me that we should head back. The return path was now in plain sight, like it was placed there the same way as it was taken. We arrived at our rented house, but I couldn't sleep the whole night. The next morning, we went to find the village again, but the mysterious path was gone. Even going deeper into the forest, we didn't find anything, not even a clearing.
Luke's third beer is empty. His story ends here. A bit confusing maybe, but surely incomplete. On the way back, I stopped at the Brogies, although the gas tank was half full. Mrs. Cashier handed me a hot dog with a smile, but mine wasn't returned. Before I got into my car, I took the first bite. Not finding it very well, I threw it in the trash and drove off. It's time to find Jane Vronek.